Watch how fast modern large language models can generate the backend routing logic for a custom payment portal. Feed the right prompts into an AI, and it reliably maps out the API integrations and writes the automated document processing models required to clear Know Your Customer or KYC checks. This speed creates a persistent engineering misconception, the assumption that because the underlying code is easy to generate, a fully functional payment processor is ready to deploy. This leads to specific hypotheses, like the idea that a developer could use AI to build decentralized individual gateways tied directly to a user's permanent account number or PAN card, bypassing third-party middlemen entirely. That assumption treats a payment gateway as a standard software application, when in reality it operates as a highly regulated financial intermediary. Deploying that code means hitting three distinct structural walls: strict licensing requirements, closed banking connectivity, and the financial liability of escrow. The rigid regulatory environment defines the actual bottleneck here, eclipsing any technological advantage gained through AI-generated code. Moving from a local code environment to the live Indian market introduces immediate legal friction. A developer cannot deploy payment processing software and begin routing user funds without explicit state authorization. In India, that authorization comes strictly through a payment aggregator license, issued directly by the central banking authority. Authorization hinges on proving massive, sustained financial stability, going well beyond simple paperwork or a clean codebase. This chart compares typical seed funding against the Reserve Bank of India's rigid capital mandate of 15 to 25 crore rupees. This massive threshold effectively locks out solo developers and AI startups from legally deploying an active gateway. Beyond capitalization, live operations demand rigorous KYC verification, a friction point that third-party gateways enforce out of necessity, not arbitrary preference. These middlemen are strictly mandated by anti-money laundering laws to verify the ultimate beneficiaries of every single transaction that flows through their pipes. While an AI model can technically parse a scanned passport or business registration, it has no legal standing to assume the liability if that verified merchant later commits financial fraud. Without the state-approved PA license and heavy capitalization required to absorb that legal liability, perfectly optimized AI code remains legally useless. Even if a developer secures the necessary license and capital, their custom software still requires a mechanism to communicate with the actual ledgers where the money resides. Established third-party gateways derive their value from spending years negotiating and building direct network pipes into core banking solutions, as well as state infrastructure like the National Payments Corporation of India. Integrating credit card processing expands that requirement further, forcing the software to interface directly with international financial infrastructure. Connecting to that global layer means adhering to the strict operational rules dictated by major entities in the space. The barrier to integrating with these networks is achieving Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, or PCI DSS, compliance. This diagram shows an AI gateway's attempt to connect to a bank database, blocked by a PCI DSS security checklist. Maintaining this standard requires manual audits of the physical premises, something a solo engineer auto-generating code cannot self-certify. Platforms like Razorpay and Stripe sell access to pre-audited, secure infrastructure. The software dashboard serves as the interface for a massive compliance engine. This brings us back to the early hypothesis, using a tax identity like a PAN card to give every individual their own direct payment gateway, completely free of middlemen. The concept of an individual direct gateway is actually fully operational in India for personal peer-to-peer transfers. We know this highly successful system locally as the Unified Payments Interface, or UPI. The critical limitation of UPI in this context is its design as an individual gateway. Commercial transactions demand distinct business gateways. The barrier separating a personal transfer from a commercial transaction is the mechanical necessity of escrow and recourse. This transaction flow isolates a commercial failure. A buyer pays, but funds pause at a central gateway node with a timer. Acting as escrow, it holds the money. When delivery fails, the node reverses the flow back to the buyer. In the proposed direct PAN gateway model without an intermediary, those funds would deposit instantly into the merchant's account, leaving the buyer with no enforced mechanism to extract a refund. If commercial entities bypassed middlemen to act as their own direct gateways, systemic consumer protection and the baseline trust required for online commerce would collapse. This radial diagram maps out the complete anatomy of a payment aggregator, showing the central gateway permanently tethered to three mandatory subsystems: regulatory licensing, security infrastructure, and escrow trust. Operating that central node first requires clearing the Reserve Bank of India's legal authorization and maintaining heavy capital reserves. It then requires maintaining physical, PCI DSS-compliant pipelines plugged directly into core banking solutions. Finally, it relies on managing the escrow mechanics that protect consumer funds and keep digital commerce viable. Evaluating the role of generative AI against this complete architecture reveals the precise limits of the technology. AI successfully resolves the technological bottleneck of writing and deploying the underlying software layer. It cannot resolve the regulatory capitalization mandates, pass physical security compliance audits, or absorb the financial liability of holding consumer funds in escrow. Third-party payment aggregators function as the load bearers of regulatory liability and systemic financial trust.